The alarm screamed through the command center of the Catherian Empire's Third Fleet. Admiral Vextar stood before the massive display screen, his 4 eyes studying the latest intelligence reports. The data made no sense. 1 human ship had destroyed 3 slave trading stations in the past month. 1 ship, 1 human. "Show me the footage again," Vextar ordered. The screen flickered to life. Security cameras from the Rigel station showed a simple cargo freighter approaching the docking bay. The ship looked old and beaten, like thousands of other vessels that moved goods between star systems. Nothing special about it at all. Then the shooting started. The human pilot cut through the station guards like they were children playing with toys. His movements were fast and precise. Every shot hit its target. Within minutes, he had freed over 200 slaves of different species and loaded them onto transport ships. "How many guards were stationed there?" Vextar asked. 50 trained soldiers, Admiral. All dead." Vextar felt his stomach turn cold. The Catherian Empire had ruled 3 star systems for over a century. They had never lost a station to a single attacker. Never. "What do we know about this human?" Commander Zixtal pulled up another file. "His name is Jake Morrison, former military pilot from Earth. Lost his family in one of our raids 5 years ago. His ship is called the Liberty Bell." The screen showed Morrison's photograph. He looked ordinary for a human. Brown hair, blue eyes, average height. Nothing that suggested he could single-handedly destroy military installations. "Intelligence believes he is planning to attack the main processing center on Kepler 442b. Zixtal continued. "Our spies report his ship was seen heading toward that system." Vextar studied the tactical display. Kepler 442b housed the Empire's largest slave operation. Thousands of captured beings from dozens of worlds were processed there before being sold to buyers across the galaxy. If Morrison attacked that facility, the financial losses would be enormous. "How many ships do we have available?" Vextar asked. "The entire Third Fleet, Admiral. 50 warships, including 3 dreadnoughts. Over 20,000 crew members." Vextar nodded. 50 ships against 1 human freighter. The numbers were so overwhelming that the fight would be over in minutes. But something bothered him about the previous attacks. Morrison had not run when outnumbered. He had not surrendered when surrounded. He fought like someone who wanted to be found. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the High Council." The main screen changed to show High Counselor Mirexdar, his scaled face twisted with anger. "Admiral, this human has made our empire look weak. 3 stations destroyed, hundreds of slaves freed, and all our forces can do is arrive after he leaves. We will capture him, Counselor. I have 50 ships moving to intercept. You will capture him alive, Admiral. The Council wants this human brought to the capital for public execution. Make an example of him. Show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Catherian Empire." The transmission ended. Vextar turned back to his tactical display. Morrison's ship had been detected at the edge of the Kepler system, exactly where intelligence predicted. The human was not hiding. He was not running. He was flying straight toward the most heavily defended slave facility in the Empire. "Set. Course for Kepler 442b. Maximum speed," Vextar ordered. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. 50 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon. Their combined firepower could level entire cities. Against 1 human in an old cargo ship, it would be a slaughter. But as they traveled through hyperspace, Vextar reviewed the attack footage one more time. Morrison moved through those guards like he knew exactly where each one would be. His weapons fire was impossibly accurate. His escape route was planned perfectly. "Commander, pull up everything we know about human military technology." Zixtal accessed the Empire's files. "Very little data available, Admiral. Humans are a new species. First contact was only 5 years ago during our raid on their colony world. Our forces reported that human weapons were primitive compared to ours. Then how is 1 human destroying our installations? Perhaps he has stolen advanced technology from another species." Vextar was not convinced. The attacks showed too much knowledge of Catherian tactics and weaknesses. Morrison knew exactly where to hit each station for maximum damage. He knew which guards to target first. He knew how to disable their communication systems. Run a deep scan on human technology records. Check for any weapons or systems we might have missed. The search came back mostly empty. Humans used kinetic weapons, basic energy shields, and simple fusion reactors. Nothing that should threaten Catherian military technology. Admiral, we are approaching the Kepler system. Drop out of hyperspace at maximum sensor range. I want to know exactly what we are dealing with before we engage. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Immediately, sensors detected Morrison's ship. The Liberty Bell hung in space near an asteroid field, making no attempt to hide or run. He is just sitting there, Zixtal observed. No evasive maneuvers. No attempt to flee. Vextar studied the tactical display. Something was wrong. No pilot would wait calmly for 50 enemy warships unless they had a plan, or unless they were completely insane. Begin standard encirclement pattern. I want that ship surrounded with no escape route. The Catherian fleet spread out in perfect formation. Dreadnoughts moved to blocking positions while smaller cruisers formed an inner ring. Within minutes, Morrison's ship was trapped in the center of an overwhelming force. Open a communication channel. The screen flickered, and Jake Morrison's face appeared. He looked calm, almost relaxed. His hands rested easily on his ship's controls. Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Vextar of the Catherian Third Fleet. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately and you will be treated according to galactic law. Morrison smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Admiral, I have been waiting for you to show up. 50 ships. The Empire must really be worried about one human with an old cargo hauler. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare for boarding. Morrison's smile grew wider. Admiral, let me make you a counteroffer. Release all the slaves on Kepler 442b. Shut down your operations in this system, and I might let some of your ships survive what comes next. Laughter erupted across the Catherian bridge. The idea that one human could threaten 50 warships was beyond absurd. You have 15 seconds, human. Morrison leaned back in his pilot's chair. Admiral, you should have brought more ships. Admiral Vextar cut the communication channel and turned to his tactical officer. Target his engines. Disable that ship, but do not destroy it. The High Council wants him alive. Admiral, detecting power buildup from the human vessel. On the main screen, the Liberty Bell began to change. Panels slid open along its hull, revealing weapon ports that had been completely hidden. The ship's energy signature spiked beyond anything their sensors had ever recorded from a human vessel. What kind of weapons is he carrying? Vextar demanded. Unknown, Admiral. The energy patterns do not match any technology in our database. Morrison's voice crackled over the communication system. Admiral, since you seem interested in my ship's capabilities, let me share some information with you. The tactical display suddenly filled with detailed schematics of every Catherian vessel in the fleet. Complete technical specifications appeared for each ship's weapons, shields, and structural weak points, information that should have been classified at the highest levels. How did he obtain this data? Zixtal whispered. Morrison continued speaking, in that same calm voice. Your flagship has a shield generator vulnerability in Section 7. Your dreadnought Fierce Talon has faulty armor plating around the main reactor. Should I continue? Vextar felt ice form in his stomach. The human was reciting details that only Catherian engineers should know. Technical secrets that were not stored in any computer system that could be hacked. Fire warning shots show him what 50 ships can do. 10 cruisers opened fire simultaneously. Brilliant energy beams lit up space around Morrison's ship. The display of firepower was meant to terrify and demoralize. Most enemies surrendered immediately when faced with such overwhelming force. Morrison did not even try to dodge. The energy beams passed harmlessly around his ship. Impressive light show, Admiral. Now let me show you what one human can do. The Liberty Bell moved forward. Not the slow, careful movement of a cargo ship, but the lightning-fast acceleration of a military fighter. The ship twisted and rolled between the Catherian vessels with impossible grace. How is that freighter moving so fast? Someone shouted from the sensor station. Morrison's ship was not just fast, It was agile beyond anything they had ever seen. The Liberty Bell spun through space like it weighed nothing, dancing between the massive Catherian warships. All ships open fire. Disable that vessel now. The entire fleet unleashed their weapons. Hundreds of energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled space. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. Morrison's ship moved through the attack like water flowing around stones. Every shot missed. The human pilot seemed to know exactly where each weapon would fire before the Catherian gunners even pulled the triggers. Impossible, Vextar breathed. No pilot can be that good. Morrison's voice came over the communication system again. Admiral, your gunners need more practice. Let me show you how it's done. The Liberty Bell's hidden weapons came online. Energy. Beams lanced out from the modified freighter, striking 2 Catherian cruisers. The ships exploded instantly, their shields offering no protection at all. Report. How did he penetrate our shields? Unknown, Admiral. His weapons appear to be calibrated to our exact shield frequencies. More Catherian ships exploded. Morrison was not firing randomly. Each shot was precise, calculated. He targeted specific systems on each vessel, causing maximum damage with minimum energy expenditure. Launch all fighters. Overwhelm him with numbers. 300 small fighter craft poured from the fleet's launch bays. The plan was simple. Even if Morrison could outfly the capital ships, he could not possibly track and engage hundreds of individual targets. Morrison proved them wrong again. Point defense systems activated across his ship's hull. Tiny, automated. Guns began firing in all directions, tracking and destroying incoming fighters with mechanical precision. Each shot found its target. No energy was wasted. Within minutes, half the fighter squadron was destroyed. The survivors fled back to their carriers in panic. Admiral, we are receiving surrender requests from 6 ships. Vextar stared at the tactical display in shock. His fleet was falling apart. Ships were either destroyed or retreating, all because of one human in a cargo freighter. How many ships have we lost? 12 destroyed, 8 disabled, 6 requesting permission to withdraw. Half his fleet was gone. The most powerful military force in the Catherian Empire was being demolished by a single opponent. Morrison's ship suddenly stopped moving. It hung motionless in space, surrounded by the wreckage of Catherian vessels. Admiral Vextar, this is your final warning. Order your remaining ships to withdraw, or I will destroy them all. You are bluffing, human. You cannot fight 30 ships at once. Watch me. The Liberty Bell's main weapons charged up. Energy readings spiked beyond anything their sensors could measure. Whatever Morrison was preparing to fire, it was powerful, enough to crack a planet. Admiral, incoming transmission from the High Council. High Counselor Minrexstar appeared on screen, his scaled face pale with fear. Admiral, withdraw immediately. We are receiving reports of your losses across the entire Empire. This human is making us look like fools. Counselor, if we retreat now, we will appear weak throughout the galaxy. We already appear weak. 50 ships cannot defeat one human freighter. Withdraw before he destroys your entire fleet. Vextar looked at his tactical display. 26 ships remained operational. Against any normal enemy, it would still be overwhelming force. But Morrison had already proven that normal tactics did not apply. Human, we will withdraw if you agree to negotiations. Morrison laughed. Admiral, the time for negotiations ended when your people raided my home world. I am not here to talk. I am here to free every slave in this system and send a message to your empire. What message? That humans do not forget. And we do not forgive. The Liberty Bell began moving again, this time toward the planet Kepler 442b. Morrison was not retreating. He was continuing his mission. All ships pursued course. We cannot let him reach the processing center. But as the Catherian fleet moved to intercept, Morrison's ship disappeared. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply gone. Where did he go? Unknown, Admiral. He was there one moment, gone the next. Sensors swept space frantically, searching for any trace of the human ship. They found nothing. Admiral, detecting explosions on the planet's surface. The main screen shifted to show Kepler 442b. Fires were burning across the main slave processing facility. Emergency beacons screamed distress signals into space. Morrison had somehow bypassed the entire fleet and reached his target. The most secure facility in the Catherian Empire was under attack by one human with a cargo ship. How did he get past us? No one had an answer. Jake Morrison had just taught the Catherian Empire that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. And this was only the beginning. Jake Morrison materialized his ship directly above the main slave processing center on Kepler 442b. The Liberty Bell's advanced cloaking system had allowed him to slip past the entire Catherian fleet undetected. Now he hung in the planet's atmosphere, studying the massive complex below. The facility stretched for kilometers across the planet's surface. Dozens of prison blocks housed thousands of captured beings from across the galaxy. Guard towers dotted the perimeter, armed with heavy weapons, designed to prevent escapes. Morrison opened a communication channel to the facility's command center. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. You have 10 minutes to evacuate all non-essential personnel and begin releasing the prisoners. After that, I start shooting." The facility commander's voice crackled back, filled with panic. "Human, you cannot attack this installation. It is protected by planetary defense systems and Admiral Vextar's fleet." Morrison checked his sensors. The orbital defense platforms were already targeting his ship. Massive energy cannons swiveled to track his position. On the planet's surface, missile batteries prepared to fire. 9 minutes, Morrison said calmly. The first wave of missiles launched from the surface. Hundreds of guided warheads streaked up through the atmosphere, their targeting systems locked onto the Liberty Bell. Any normal ship would have been vaporized instantly. Morrison's ship moved like liquid lightning. The modified freighter twisted and spun through the incoming missiles, its point defense systems shooting down anything that came too close. Not a single warhead found its target. The orbital defense platforms opened fire next. Energy beams powerful, enough to melt battleship armor, lanced through space. Morrison flew directly into the barrage, his ship weaving between the deadly energy streams. "Time's up," Morrison announced. "The Liberty Bell's main weapons activated." The first shot struck the facility's power plant. The massive fusion reactor exploded in a ball of blue fire, plunging half the complex into darkness. Emergency power systems struggled to come online. Morrison's second shot demolished the main guard barracks. 300 Catherian soldiers were preparing to deploy when their building simply vanished in a flash of superheated plasma. The orbital defense platforms turned their fire toward Morrison's ship, but he was already moving. The Liberty Bell dove toward the planet's surface at speeds that should have torn any normal vessel apart. Atmospheric friction turned the ship into a blazing meteor, but its shields held. Morrison landed directly in the center of the prison complex. His ship's engines shut down, and cargo bay doors opened. Inside, automated systems began preparing medical supplies and emergency food rations for the prisoners he was about to free. Catherian guards surrounded the landed ship, firing everything they had at its hull. Energy weapons, explosive rounds, and plasma charges struck the Liberty Bell's shields without effect. Morrison had built his ship to withstand attacks from entire fleets. The ship's defensive systems activated. Hidden weapon turrets emerged from concealed compartments along the hull. Each turret tracked and eliminated Catherian soldiers with mechanical precision. Within minutes, the immediate area around Morrison's ship was clear. Morrison stepped out of his ship wearing combat armor that looked nothing like standard human equipment. The suit was sleek and black, covered with sensors and weapon systems. His helmet displayed tactical information about every enemy position within kilometers. He walked toward the nearest prison block, ignoring the energy beams that struck his armor's shields. Catherian guards fired desperately, but their weapons could not penetrate his protection. The prison block's entrance was sealed with a massive steel door designed to withstand siege weapons. Morrison placed a small device against the lock and stepped back. The explosion that followed turned 3 meters of reinforced metal into vapor. Inside the prison block, Morrison found hundreds of captured beings from dozens of different species. They huddled in overcrowded cells, many showing signs of torture and starvation. Some had been prisoners for years. "I am here to get you out," Morrison announced in the common galactic language. "Stay calm and follow my instructions," he began, systematically opening cell doors. His armor's computer systems hacked through the electronic locks in seconds. Prisoners poured out, confused and frightened but hopeful. "Move to my ship," Morrison instructed. "Medical treatment and food are available in the cargo bay." Above the planet, Admiral Vextar's fleet finally arrived in orbit. 26 warships took positions around Kepler 442b, their sensors focused on Morrison's location. "All ships, prepare for orbital bombardment," Vextar ordered. "Destroy that human and the entire facility if necessary." "Admiral, there are thousands of valuable slaves in that complex. The financial losses would be enormous." Vextar studied the tactical display. Morrison had already freed 3 prison blocks and was moving toward a 4th. If this continued, the Empire would lose its most profitable slave operation. "Deploy ground forces. I want every available soldier on the planet's surface. Surround that human and capture him alive." Troop transports launched from the Catherian fleet. Thousands of soldiers descended toward the planet in armored dropships. The plan was to overwhelm Morrison with sheer numbers. Morrison watched the incoming ships on his helmet display. He had expected this response. While continuing to free prisoners, he activated additional systems in the Liberty Bell. The cargo ship's hull began to shift and change. Armor plating rearranged itself, revealing massive weapon systems that had been completely hidden. The Liberty Bell transformed from a simple freighter into a fortress bristling with defensive guns. The first Catherian dropships landed outside the prison complex. Soldiers poured out, advancing in perfect formation toward Morrison's position. They carried heavy weapons designed to crack bunkers and demolish buildings. Morrison's ship opened fire. The hidden weapons that emerged from its hull were unlike anything the Catherians had ever encountered. Energy beams swept across the landing zone, destroying entire squads of soldiers in single shots. The weapons did not fire randomly. Each shot was precisely calculated to cause maximum damage, while avoiding any prisoners who might be caught in the crossfire. Morrison's tactical systems tracked every friendly and enemy position simultaneously. More dropships landed, but Morrison was ready for them. Small drone fighters deployed from his ship's cargo bay, engaging the Catherian transports before they could unload their troops. The drones moved with impossible speed and agility, destroying targets that veteran pilots could not even track. "Admiral, we have lost 60% of our ground forces. The human's weapons are too advanced. Our soldiers cannot get close enough to engage him." Vextar watched the battle from orbit, his confidence crumbling. One human had landed on a heavily defended planet and was systematically destroying everything the Empire threw at him. What about the prisoners he is freeing? Latest reports indicate he has liberated over 2,000 beings from 6 different species. They are loading onto transport ships that he somehow acquired. Morrison had not just brought his own ship. He had captured Catherian transport vessels and converted them into refugee carriers. The freed prisoners were being evacuated even as the battle continued around them. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the human." Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the prison complex burned while streams of liberated slaves moved toward safety. "Admiral Vextar, I am offering you one final opportunity to withdraw. Your ground forces are defeated, your orbital defenses are destroyed, and your fleet cannot touch me. Leave this system now and I will allow your surviving ships to depart. Human, you are one man against the entire Catherian Empire. You cannot win." Morrison smiled that cold, dangerous smile again. "Admiral, I have already won. Watch." The Liberty Bell's main weapon charged up, its energy signature visible even from orbit. Morrison was targeting something on the planet's surface, but not the prison complex. The shot struck the planet's main communication array. The massive transmitter complex exploded, cutting off all contact between Kepler 442b and the rest of the Empire. Whatever happened next, no one would know about it until Morrison allowed them to leave. Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical display in growing horror. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. His ground forces were scattered across the planet's surface, either dead or in full retreat. And Jake Morrison continued his systematic, Liberation of the slave complex as if 26 warships in orbit pose no threat at all. Admiral, the human has freed over 4,000 prisoners. Our intelligence estimates there were 6,000 total in the facility. What about our remaining ground forces? Retreating to defensive positions. Commander Krelltax reports that human weapons are unlike anything we have encountered. His soldiers cannot get within a kilometer of the target. Vextar had spent 40 years in the Catherian military. He had conquered 3 star systems and defeated dozens of alien species. Never had he faced an enemy like this. Morrison fought with technology that seemed impossible and tactics that anticipated every Catherian move. Sir, incoming transmission from High Command. The main screen shifted to show High Counselor Mrexstar, the scale-covered leader of the Catherian Empire. Looked older than when they had spoken hours before. Reports of the disaster at Kepler 442b had already reached the capital. Admiral, what is your current status? The human has neutralized our planetary defenses and ground forces. He is systematically freeing all prisoners in the facility. How many ships do you have remaining? Vextar swallowed hard. 26. Vessels operational, Counselor. We have lost nearly half the Third Fleet. Silence stretched across the communication channel. The idea that one human could destroy half of their most powerful fleet was beyond the High Council's comprehension. Admiral, you will withdraw immediately. Cut your losses and return to base. Counselor, if we retreat now, this human will have defeated the entire Third Fleet. Our reputation across the galaxy will be destroyed. Our reputation is already destroyed. News of this battle is spreading through every communication network in known space. Pirates and rebels in a dozen systems are already planning attacks on our facilities. The transmission ended abruptly. Vextar was alone with the wreckage of his career and his fleet. On the planet's surface, Morrison completed his evacuation of the final prison block. 6,000 freed slaves of 40 different species were now safely aboard captured Catherian transport ships. The massive complex that had processed sentient beings like cargo was burning ruins. Morrison stood in the facility's former command center, studying computer records of the Empire's slave operations. Files detailed hundreds of raids across the galaxy, millions of captured beings, and profits that funded the Catherian war machine. Liberty Bell to Fleet Command. Morrison spoke into his communication system. Admiral Vextar's voice crackled back, filled with exhaustion and defeat. What do you want, human? I want you to send a message to your High Council. Tell them that Jake Morrison remembers the colony world of New Haven. Tell them I remember my wife, Lisa, and my daughter, Emma. Tell them I will remember every world they have raided and every life they have destroyed. Vextar felt something cold settle in his chest. What are you saying? I am saying that this is not over, Admiral. This is just the beginning. Every slave ship, every processing center, every raid your empire conducts will have to deal with me. I am not going away. Morrison began uploading data from the facility's computers to his ship. Names, locations, shipping schedules, and financial records of the entire Catherian slave trade network. Information that would allow him to strike at targets across the galaxy. Human, you are one man. The Empire spans 3 star systems. You cannot fight us everywhere. Morrison's laughter echoed through the communication system. Admiral, let me tell you something about humans. When one of us decides to fight for something we believe in, we do not stop. Ever. Your people made a mistake when they took my family. Now, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure they regret it. The Liberty Bell lifted off from the burning prison complex. Morrison's ship rose through the atmosphere, past the orbital defense platforms he had destroyed, toward the Catherian fleet that hung helplessly in space. Admiral, I am departing this system now. Your surviving ships are free to leave, but remember this day. Remember that one human with one ship just destroyed your most important facility and freed 6,000 of your prisoners. Where are you taking them? Somewhere safe. Somewhere your empire will never find them. Morrison's ship approached the Catherian fleet. The remaining 26 warships tracked his movement but did not fire. Their weapons had proven useless against his technology, and their admiral had no stomach for further losses. As the Liberty Bell passed between the massive warships, Morrison opened a final communication channel. "Admiral, there is something else. You should know. I am not the only human out there. Earth has been watching your empire for 5 years, studying your technology and your tactics. We know about your slave raids, your military deployments, and your weaknesses." "What are you saying?" "I am saying that Earth is no longer a target, Admiral. We are a threat. And threats have a way of becoming very dangerous when they decide to act." The Liberty Bell activated systems that the Catherians had never seen before. Space around Morrison's ship began to distort and bend. Reality twisted as exotic physics created a passage through dimensions that should not exist. Morrison's ship and the entire convoy of refugee transports vanished into the impossible gateway. They simply ceased to exist in normal space, leaving the Catherian fleet alone with their dead. Admiral Vextar stood on his bridge, surrounded by the floating wreckage of his fleet. In one day, Jake Morrison had taught the Catherian Empire that humans were not the primitive species they had believed. Humans had technology that could make ships invisible, weapons that could penetrate any defense, and a determination that would not be broken by overwhelming odds. "Navigator, set course for home. We need to report what we have learned." "What shall I log as the reason for our losses, Admiral?" Vextar looked at the tactical display one final time. 50 ships had been sent to capture one human. Only Wreckage was returning. "Log it exactly as it happened. One human defeated the Third Fleet and escaped with 6,000 freed prisoners. Let the High Council decide what to do with that information." As the surviving Catherian ships limped away from Kepler 442b, emergency broadcasts began transmitting across the galaxy. News of the battle spread through communication networks at the speed of light. Every species that had suffered under Catherian oppression heard the same impossible story. One human had stood against the Empire, and won. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted, and Jake Morrison was only getting started. The refugee convoy emerged from the dimensional gateway in a star system far beyond Catherian space. Jake Morrison guided the Liberty Bell toward a blue-green world that orbited a young star. Behind him, 20 captured transport ships carried 6,000 freed beings to their new home. The planet below had been chosen carefully, rich in resources, defensible, and completely unknown to the major galactic powers. Morrison had spent months preparing this sanctuary, building hidden facilities and establishing supply lines that could not be traced. "All ships, begin landing. Procedures," Morrison broadcast to the convoy. "Medical teams are standing by at the surface facilities." As the transport ships descended toward the planet, Morrison opened a secured communication channel to Earth. The signal would take weeks to reach home, but his mission report needed to be transmitted while events were still fresh. "Earth Defense Command, this is Captain Morrison. Operation New Haven is complete. Target facility destroyed, 6,000 beings liberated, Catherian Third Fleet neutralized, awaiting further instructions." The refugee ships landed safely on the planet's main continent. Morrison watched from orbit as the freed slaves took their first steps on solid ground in years. Many had been prisoners so long they had forgotten what freedom felt like. Medical teams that Morrison had positioned on the planet began treating the worst cases. Advanced human medical technology could heal injuries that alien doctors considered permanent. Burns from torture devices faded, broken bones reset themselves, and psychological trauma began to heal under gentle care. Morrison landed the Liberty Bell near the main settlement and stepped onto the planet's surface. Representatives from a dozen alien species approached him, their faces showing mixtures of gratitude and disbelief. "Captain Morrison," spoke an elderly being whose species Morrison did not recognize. "How can we ever repay what you have done for us? You do not need to repay anything. You are free now. Build new lives, start families, and never let anyone put you in chains again." A young alien female stepped forward. Her species had been nearly wiped out by Catherian raids. "Captain, will they come for us here?" Morrison looked up at the star-filled sky. "The Catherians do not know this place exists, but if they ever find you, I will be here to stop them." Over the following days, Morrison helped establish the refugee settlement. Prefabricated buildings rose from the planet's surface, powered by fusion reactors that would run for centuries. Automated farms began producing food, while fabrication systems created tools and equipment needed for a growing colony. The refugees organized themselves by species at first, but gradually began working together. Common hardship had created bonds that crossed biological differences. They had all suffered under Catherian oppression, and they all owed their freedom to one human who had refused to give up. Morrison received updates from across the galaxy through his extensive intelligence network. News of the battle at Kepler 442b had spread faster than he had expected. The story grew with each telling, but the core facts remained the same. One human had destroyed half the Third Fleet and freed thousands of slaves. The reaction among different species varied dramatically. Races that had been conquered by the Catherians saw Morrison as a symbol of hope. If one human could defeat their oppressors, perhaps liberation was possible for all enslaved beings. The Catherian Empire, however, was responding with increasing paranoia. Reports indicated that the High Council was recalling fleets from border regions to protect core worlds. Slave raids had been suspended while military commanders tried to understand human capabilities. Most importantly, other galactic powers were beginning to take notice of humanity. Species that had ignored Earth for years were suddenly sending diplomatic missions to learn more about human technology and intentions. Morrison's personal communication system chimed with an incoming message from Earth. The response from Defense Command had arrived ahead of schedule, routed through subspace relay stations that cut transmission time from weeks to days. Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Patricia Kane, Earth Defense Command. Your actions at Kepler 442b have exceeded all expectations. The liberation operation was a complete success, and the intelligence data you transmitted is invaluable. Morrison had met Admiral Kane during his military service. She was one of the few officers who understood that humanity's survival depended on being proactive rather than reactive in galactic affairs. However, the message continued, your actions have also accelerated our timeline significantly. We had planned a slow introduction to galactic politics over several decades. Instead, humanity is now seen as a major threat to established powers. This creates both opportunities and dangers. Morrison understood the implications. His personal war against the Catherians had forced Earth to reveal capabilities that were meant to remain secret for years longer. But some fights could not wait for perfect timing. Earth Defense Command is implementing Expansion Protocol 7 immediately. Fleet construction is being accelerated, and we are establishing forward bases in 12 systems. Your actions have shown the galaxy that humans cannot be ignored or easily defeated. The message included updated mission parameters. Morrison was no longer operating alone. Earth was sending additional ships and personnel to support his operations against Catherian slave networks. The personal vendetta was becoming an official military campaign. Morrison smiled as he read the final portion of the message. Captain, you have demonstrated that humans do not abandon those who cannot defend themselves. This is the message we want the galaxy to receive. Continue your operations with full Earth backing. Show them what humanity stands for. Morrison walked through the refugee settlement as evening fell on the planet. Cooking fires burned outside, temporary shelters while alien families shared meals together. Children of different species played games that transcended language barriers. Adults worked together to build a better future for all their peoples. This was what he had been fighting for. Not just revenge against the Catherians, but the chance for peaceful beings to live without fear. The chance for sentient species to develop their cultures without being enslaved or slaughtered by those with superior military technology. Morrison's communication system alerted him to incoming traffic on galactic news networks. He accessed the broadcast through his ship's systems, curious about how the story was being told across different worlds. The reports varied dramatically depending on their source. Catherian propaganda claimed that a human terrorist had conducted an unprovoked attack on a legitimate facility. They painted Morrison as a dangerous criminal who threatened galactic stability. Independent news services told a different story. They described Morrison as a freedom fighter who had struck a blow against one of the galaxy's most brutal empires. Some reports compared him to legendary figures from their own histories, rebels who had fought against impossible odds. But the most interesting reactions came from the smaller species, those who had suffered under Cytherian expansion. Their broadcast treated Morrison like a mythical hero, someone who had achieved what they had only dreamed of. Songs were already being written about the human who had defeated 50 ships with one vessel. Morrison shut down the news feeds and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the Cytherian Empire was licking its wounds and planning retaliation. Other powers were reassessing humanity's role in galactic affairs, and new threats were probably emerging as the balance of power shifted. But tonight, 6,000 beings were sleeping safely on a world where they could not be bought, sold, or tortured. Tomorrow, they would begin building new lives in freedom. Morrison had kept his promise to his wife and daughter. He had made the Cytherians pay for their crimes. But more importantly, he had shown the galaxy that some humans would never stop fighting for what was right. No matter how impossible the odds appeared, the Liberty Bell rested quietly in the settlement's landing field, its weapons powered down but ready for action. Soon, Morrison would return to space to continue his war against the slave trade, but for now he was content to watch over the people he had saved. The message had been sent across the galaxy. Humanity would not tolerate the oppression of innocent beings, and any species that chose to ignore that message would learn the same lesson the Cytherians had learned at Kepler 442b. Some fights were worth fighting, even when you stood alone against impossible odds.